Hello again. Today I'm going to show you two things. Today I'm going to show you how to do character development, how to basically draw a character, and from there I'm going to show you how to add color and also how to use a marker and a pen to enhance your color. First thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about character development, basically how to do research, because sometimes, for the most part, most of you cannot draw from your mind, and it creates like an artist block in a sense. You're stuck. But before we go into that, I brought a few comics to give you ideas, in a sense. The comics I brought are from the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and 2000s. This one's from 1968, 1969. You're also going to see a difference in the comics regarding techniques and subject matter. Here's a Hulk from the 70s. Here's an early Avengers. Actually, it's not that early. You can see the number. At this time it was pretty old, but in today's standards, I mean today's times, this is pretty old, but back then it was pretty early. Here's a Captain America. Also, look at the style. Here's another Avengers. So pay attention to the style, because it's going to start changing as we go throughout the years. This is 2000. Look at the style, look at the colors, look at the lines, and look at also on the development of the characters. Here's another one from the 2000s era. Again, look at the colors, look at the anatomy, look at the structure. Totally different when you look at something from the 60s and 70s like this. Or one of the early Hulks. Huge difference. There's another one from 2000. And this one's from the 80s. Again, you can see a difference. 80s and 2000s. And here is 90s. Notice how it's changing slightly. And here is two more from the 2000s. Actually 90s, apologize, late 90s. And this is also late 90s, so you can see a transition. So basically there is an evolution in comics from the beginning to what is now. I recommend to get several comic books before you actually start the project. Locally here in the valley you can get comic books probably at Toys R Us. That's probably the only place here that I've seen comic books. We used to have a good comic book store, but it went out of business like maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. But that is the only place here in the valley where you can probably get comic books. Alright, another book I recommend, this is an older version, is this one. This is the official Marvel Comics tryout book. It basically tells you how to start a comic book from scratch, from writing it, story building, and character development, which I recommend. Just flip a few pages. It briefly goes over coloring, how to basically use color, materials that they use, and it's very good reference books because it tells you how to do this and how to do your lettering, how to do your things like this that you apply to your work. The script. Again, this is something you can get, which I recommend. The newer book from Marvel is called How to Draw the Marvel Way, which I also recommend. Now, anytime I start a drawing, this is what I do. I'm just gonna get my normal drafting pencil. I think about something and then I draw it. For example, I start with the oval shape like this. That's my first point. And then from there, I start doing this. I start doing the neck, part of the shoulder, the chest, abdomen, the hands. I just do this for now. Just basic lines, nothing fancy. And then I start doing the legs and the feet. Notice how I just, not caring about my mistakes, I just do circles and lines, because we can always fix it later. Now, this is my basic skeleton. Now from there, I start building. I start thinking, do I want this person to have a helmet? Do I want this person to be stronger, skinnier, and so forth? As I'm thinking, then I start taking my time a little bit more and I start adding more to this individual. Start shaping this. And don't worry, I will show you how I come upon this. Some of you might not have an idea basically about anatomy or the structure of the human form, and that's okay. I will show you some tips that will help you how to go about it. Again, this is just a rough draft. This is one of the good ways where we can make mistakes and fix them. So it's like when you write a paper. In your paper you do a first draft, which is the rough draft. And then from there you either do a second or a third draft. The third draft hopefully being the final draft. That's when you start fixing, making adjustments, and so forth. It's the same thing in a way. The tail. I'm going to put some spikes. Again, this is where I'm going to add his armor and so forth, and a few spikes here and there. This will be his tail. His weapon, like so forth, and there. I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point, and let me go ahead and give you some tips on how to go about it. One of the things I recommend, which will work, is action figures. If you have a few action figures, you can ask your students. Most of the students should have some. If not, you might be able to go to your local swap meet and just buy several action figures. These are some Power Rangers that I had, and if you look at these, pretty much you can see the actual form of the body. You can turn them around and you can use it as a reference. You can even do this. You can bend them any way you want and create a pose. You can also add another person in the back as to create perspective in a sense. So, for example, let's decide to do with this person here. Let's create a pose. Twist them around. We can, let's see, give him a pencil like so. You might be able to hold it. That's good. Just to imagine that he's holding a weapon. You don't necessarily have to draw his armor that he's wearing. You can change it. So that's my pose. You know what? And we'll go from there. So here we go. Start with the oval shape, top of the form. And go ahead and divide it in half. Draw a line across where the eyes should be at. This is where the neck goes. And then we're going to just draw a line like so here. And then we'll gonna just do the curve that's there. I'm just drawing basic lines right now. Let's do this part here. This midsection. Let's do the arm. Just a line like this. There's another line that goes here. I'm gonna go ahead and put a circle here for the elbow. And then for the hand itself, I'm just gonna do that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we go over here. Do the same for the other arm. The arm should kind of line up with this one. And it drops further down to about there. Let's do the same with the legs. This would be an excellent way for students to look at something that's three-dimensional as opposed to something that's flat. You can also use pictures. If you do research, you can find pictures from either the internet or the magazine to help you with your poses. It just depends what you're looking for. And there you have it, basic shape. From there you can start adding things that you want. Yeah, you don't have to keep them the same. For example, let's start here. Let's change his helmet. And his weapon. From there you can decide, well, what do I want this person to have? Maybe you want this person to have a cape, so we'll start adding a cape. Like so. And maybe change the armor just a tad bit. Possibilities are endless. You can also reference other comic books from your local store, see how other artists do armor, do insects. That way you can have a better idea how they do things. And that's going to help you as well. And that's, hopefully that will make sense to you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here at this point. Alright, our next part is color. These are the colors I'll be using. I'll be using Prismacolor, color pencils. I also will be using a cordless blender. This is a Prismacolor. There's no color. This is to blend the color pencils. Instead of using too much white to blend the color, we'll use this to blend, which I'll show you how to use. The other thing I recommend is to use a normal black pen, a marker for larger areas, and a smaller tip Sharpie for smaller details. And that's it. Now, one of the things I'm going to show you is basically how to add color to your drawing. I'm going to be adding this to the website. This is what I give my students when we talk about color pencil and marker and pen. I usually write down basically a few key points for, like, for example, dark shadows. I always ask my students to use a base color, either violet, aka purple, because technically violet and purple are the same thing. Red, different variations of red, or blue, before adding marker pen or black color pencil. And again, I'll explain that process today, but I'll have this in the site for your information. Here's some examples that I show my students that I do with them. Here we have different variations of value using color pencil. For example, here, notice the gloss here, the shiny part. The shiny part here, we basically do several key elements. We first start with the violet. Once we apply the violet, then we add the marker. Once we apply the marker, then we apply the pen, and then we apply the color pencil again. That gives it the gloss. Anytime you use a pen, it will give you a gloss. The areas that are flat, for example here and here, we do not use the pen. We repeat the other process